Okay, so I know a lot of you guys were pretty disappointed that I did not include Turok Rage Wars and Turok 08 in my last Turok video I made about a couple months ago. And one mistake I made in that last video was addressing why I never included Turok 08 at the end of my video instead of addressing it at the beginning as a disclaimer. And when I learned about this mistake, I tried fixing it and made a pinned comment, but again, that didn't help a whole lot because some of y'all just straight up don't read what's in front of you. And so now I make this video for a bit of a few reasons. One, because so many of you were disappointed that I did not include Rage Wars and Turok 08 in my last video, and also because, to be honest, I too was a bit unsatisfied with not including 08 in the first video. And honestly, the reason I never mentioned Rage Wars in the first place is because I just simply forgot it existed. But the original reason I did not include 08 in my last video was because the PC version of that game can be a bit of a hassle to set up. But I asked you guys in a community poll, and the overwhelming majority of you guys wanted a part 2 if I got around to getting Rage Wars and 08 up and working. And well, this video is out now, so you all know the result of that. Before you guys continue watching this video, I highly recommend you go and watch the first video, which will be linked down below. Then you can come back here and finish up the whole series in this video. Also, I can't believe this is a disclaimer I have to put in the video, but I'm putting it here because some of y'all like to act like smartasses and comment, "You didn't play all the Turok games." And yes, I know that in my previous video I didn't technically play all of them because, again, I did not include Rage Wars and 08 and all the Game Boy games that just don't matter. The title is a bit over exaggerated for clicks. No shit, Sherlock. Now, don't get your panties in a bunch. That wasn't for all of you who enjoyed the video and commented positive stuff. I love you. That was for all the annoying know-it-all Andes that like to act like the content police. But for real though, I cannot believe my last Turok video is currently sitting at over 100,000 views. And I know that this may not sound like a brag for other creators, but for me at least, I'm super proud of reaching over 700 plus subs from just that one video alone. I'm super grateful, super happy, and honestly it makes me feel more confident in the content I'm making now because I genuinely feel like I'm starting to make a community. I doubt this video will get the amount of views that my previous one did, but honestly, even if just a few of you show up that watched my last video, that is honestly enough to satisfy me. Anyway, back to talking about Turok. When I actually took the time to get Turok 08 to work on my PC, it honestly wasn't that bad. I think the first time I tried doing it, I did it without really looking into how to get it working, but the website I used to download Turok 08 includes instructions on how to play it on your PC, so I will include the website I used to play Turok 08 in the description, and if any of you do end up wanting to play it, I do highly suggest you follow every step the description gives you, even the optional ones. Also, this will probably upset a lot of you, but I'm just going to keep it a $1.50 with y'all. While yes, I did download an emulator, more specifically Project 64, to play Turok Rage Wars. When I first booted up this emulator, I really had to rack my brain around to map the controls from an N64 controller to an Xbox controller. Now look, I like to consider myself old school, with the PS2 and the GameCube being the first consoles I can remember playing, but I ain't gonna lie, the N64 controller scheme got me feeling like a zoomer. But eventually I got everything set up, and when I loaded up to play the Trials mode that people were telling me to play, I started moving around and the controls are inverted, and there's no way to change this in the game settings. I tried so hard to figure out how to change this. I searched the internet on how to turn off these inverted settings on Rage Wars and found nothing. I even resorted to using mouse and keyboard and reversing the aim directions on the mouse, and theoretically this would have worked if the mouse worked well. I don't know if it's an emulator issue or a game issue, but whenever I used my mouse to try and play Rage Wars, I got this weird input delay and the aiming felt very floaty and just did not feel very good or accurate to use. And after a while of trying, I just gave up and barely got through the very first trial. And I just want to say I sincerely apologize to everyone who was hoping to see Rage Wars in this video. Feel free to call me a spoiled gamer, but I just cannot play on inverted controls. My brain has been hardwired on the normal control scheme so much that trying to play on inverted controls just completely shuts my brain down. Now look, I'm sure Rage Wars was a blast back in the day. Fighting your friends and going through those single player trials and unlocking cool stuff for the multiplayer was probably awesome back in the day. However though, I ain't gonna lie, if all the trials is just running around in an arena doing these objectives just to unlock stuff for multiplayer, I honestly just don't really care. I don't want to judge the whole Trials mode based on the single one I played, but if that's basically what Trials is, then yeah, I just honestly don't care. It's not that I think it's bad or boring, it's just that if I'm not playing anything that has a form of progression and some type of story, or we're going on a journey that's building set pieces, I just really don't want to spend time playing something like that when I could be playing something else. So again, I am sorry for all you Rage Wars fans that were hoping to see your game on here. As I said, I'm sure Rage Wars was a blast back in the day, but ultimately it just seems like Rage Wars is nothing more than just a multiplayer game with some single player content that ties with the multiplayer. And I know it kind of sucks for all of you who are big fans of Rage Wars and want to see that Night Dive really doesn't have any interest at all in the game whatsoever. I know I mentioned it in my last Turok video, but honestly it seems like the only game left Night Dive really has left to remaster or remake is Evolution, but who knows what will come next with Night Dive and the Turok franchise. Not only does this main menu theme hit hard, but I think it might be the most recognizable main menu theme when it comes to any Turok game. While yes, it may be the youngest Turok game in the whole franchise, this game is the most remembered when you mention the name Turok. And I feel like for most people around my age, this game or Turok Evolution are more than likely going to be your first entries in the Turok franchise as a whole. And besides Evolution, this game also has a very mixed viewpoint on depending who you ask. As a kid, I absolutely love this game, and even now as an adult, I still actually enjoy this game for this playthrough. And while I did enjoy playing this game for this video, there are still things I want to point out both in the game and in the story of the game. And I think the best way for me to explain everything clearly and concisely without diverting is for me to just break everything down with this game. And I think the perfect place to start is to give a quick breakdown and summary of the story, and then further break down any nitpicks I have. The game begins with this cutscene of a group of Spec Ops dudes going around and killing these guys in this village that seem to be a part of some kind of militia or cartel group or something that the game doesn't explain who these people are you were killing and why you are. And after going through this montage of these soldiers killing these guys, we are teased with this little cliffhanger and Turok wakes up from his cryo sleep. And immediately after, we know that this cutscene was basically to show who Turok was in his past before he got here. Granted, it is by no means a very deep introduction of Turok's past, but it's just a small glimpse. We wake up from cryo sleep, go to this meeting where we get to meet all the characters we're going to encounter, and learn that our main target is Roland Kane, who is the leader of this organization Wolfpack that Turok was previously aligned with. We learned that Best Boy Slade has some beef with Turok, and a few moments later we're being shot down by a surface-to-space missile. We crash land on this planet, and the mission quickly changes from going to capture Kane to just trying to find as many survivors as possible and get the hell off this place. We meet up with Slade, and after going through several set pieces and a Giganotosaurus, we meet back up with Whiskey Company after many fights against dinosaurs and Kane's men. However, the reunion with Whiskey Company is short and sweet because shortly after meeting up with everyone, our new objective is to get a working comms unit. With the new quests of searching for a working comms unit, Turok has a small reunion with one of the members of Wolfpack and ends up fighting Cowboy as the last survivor in the area. Cowboy takes an arrow to the appendix instead of the knee because he's not very much of an adventurer. However, though, that still doesn't change the mission, and we set out once again in search for a working comms unit. After many more dinos and Kane's men annihilated, we finally find a working comms unit until Big Mama T-Rex comes in and messes everything up. But as any Turok knows, a T-Rex is nothing more than just another day in the office. Turok gets his lights turned off after bonking his head after his hard fight with the T-Rex. Then we wake up and make our way back to camp. But our return to camp isn't met with claps and cheers. In fact, Slade is pissed that Turok came back all by himself, and we are ambushed shortly after. And holy shit, is that a spider tank? Oh well, don't matter because it's nothing a few RPG shots can't fix. Bada bing, bada boom, ambush is dealt with, and now Logan wants us to investigate the source of these lights shining in the night sky. Jesus Christ, Turok in the game can't catch a break. So we all nut the fuck up and go and investigate what exactly is producing these lights. We enter into this compound with no resistance and stumble upon some interesting information that Kane had been keeping logs of. Curiosity gets the best of us and we take a little peek into what Kane had been keeping logs of. Watching through these logs, we learn that Kane's group of scientists have been experimenting with some type of bioweapon. One that is so dangerous that if it's deposited in a closed room, will kill everyone inside and then leave without a trace. Of course, this discovery does not come peacefully as we get ambushed by a new enemy, the Scorpions. And no, not the 80s rock band Scorpions. We run for our lives and end up getting consumed into the bug nest where Turok somehow does not die after passing out for possibly some time. Thankfully though, Slade dropped his flamethrower to us. Whether it was by accident or not, I'm not really sure, but either way, the flamethrower comes in handy for burning out the bugs. This game was spreading democracy way before Helldivers ever did, but with the flamethrower in hand, we burn many bugs out of the way until we make our way out of this confusing ass tunnel area, and this boss is probably the most recognizable boss in the game, more so than the T-Rex I'd even say. But we beat the boss, save Slade's ass, and get the hell out of this hellhole. Once we make it back to the surface, we meet back up with Logan and the gang and ambush some of Kane's men. Logan dies like an absolute goofball. Turok picks up the RPG and shoots down a helicopter. More gunfights ensue and we narrowly escape while losing Jericho in the process. After we barely make our escape, we continue onward with our homie Shepard and keep fighting on to meet up with the rest of the gang that remains of Whiskey Company. We eventually meet back up with the boys, we go through the main base of Kane's organization, and keep fighting through most of Kane's men, and here we finally reach the finale. Turok is able to leave with everyone else, except he decides to stay and finish off Kane. Turok turns and walk away, and we fight our way back to Kane's direction. Mom is my turn on the Xbox style. Turok destroys Kane's aircraft, and now the final showdown begins. Man to man, Wolfpack to Wolfpack member, mentor to student. Going off script a little bit here, I just want to say that while I do find this speech a little cheesy, I just can't help but kind of like it. It's kind of funny and cute at the same time. I'm just like, hell yeah, you go, Turok.
You wouldn't have ordered me to kill innocent civilians. That's not the way of my people.
I had orders and I followed them. That's the way of my people, Turok. We respect the chain of command of you. You let emotion cloud your judgment. That's why you can never be a true soldier.
Oh, you're right, Kane. I'm not a soldier. A soldier follows orders, but a warrior follows his heart.
Once the fight begins, you mash buttons to win, the knife goes through Kane's heart, and it's all Jover. At least, that's what you thought. No, Mama T-Rex wants revenge for killing her children and stabbing her in the eye. I ain't gonna lie, I think the final boss in this game might have been the most stressful fight I've ever had in an FPS game. But in a good way. There's just something so menacing seeing this giant dinosaur walk in your direction without you or it having health bar, no super fancy movement to avoid the thing, and the best thing you got to cheesing this boss fight is by hugging these stacks of crates and hoping for the best. Generally, my strategy was to get as many items as I could, run toward the missile turret, get a shot off or two, and run back to those crates near the turret. I think I died only like once or twice during this boss fight. Once I got my strategy down, I just stayed in this flow state, and when I finally reached the point where I could end the fight, I feel like such a massive weight of relief came off of me. So if you remember from my first Turok video when I mentioned that during my playthrough of Evolution, that had been the first time I had ever beaten the game and made it past chapter 3 that dumbass little kid me couldn't get past. Well, this game is somewhat similar to that, except I'd actually gotten to the final boss fight, but little me was just too dumb and so bad that I could not beat this boss, and I gave up and never tried again until now. And that same feeling I got from beating Evolution, I got from this game too. These Turok videos have really almost been therapy for me, because beating these games almost in a sense have made me feel like I've gotten my gamer manliness back, as funny as that sounds. But after defeating the Mama T-Rex, Slade and Shepard show up again to pick Turok up and take us back home, and then the game fades to black and it ends there. I'm not going to lie, I actually genuinely enjoyed playing through this game. Is the game perfect by any means or super groundbreaking as an FPS game? No. However though, I think I would say this game has been the most fun and probably the best mediocre FPS game I've ever played. But as I said earlier before the breakdown, there were some things I wanted to go over and basically break down the issues I had with the game's story and the game itself. So if you were about to stand up thinking this video was over, you gotta sit back down because I'm not done. So here we go. As I was playing through this game, a lot of questions popped up in my head, and even in the very beginning part of the game, I had questions. The one thing that never gets explained, at least as far as I can remember, throughout this game is who exactly are we and why are we trying to capture Kane? I'm sure if I went on the Turok fandom wiki, I would probably learn who we are and why we're going after Kane exactly, but the game doesn't really do that. And that's a theme I noticed throughout this game. This game throws a lot of set pieces at you, but never really goes deeper than what's given to you. Like as I mentioned, who exactly are we and why are we going after Kane? Are we a military unit being dispatched to this planet that we know for sure he resides here? Or are we part of a bounty hunter organization being paid to go after Kane? And if we are some military or bounty hunter organization, why are we coming here so unprepared? How and why are we so careless that we get shot down by a surface-to-space missile? Also, why exactly are we going after Kane? Later on in the game, we learn why Turok leaves Wolfpack because during one of the raids, innocent civilians and children are killed by Wolfpack in Turok's hands. But then, of course, that leads to even more questions in my head. Who exactly is Wolfpack? From this one cutscene, it sort of seems like Wolfpack gets its recruits from people who have been basically shipped up the river in the prison system, but then again that makes me question why was Turok even arrested in the first place? Why did Wolfpack choose him over somebody else? Also, something this game does is add a lot of characters, but gives them either very little to no character development at all. And the only very well-known character in this game besides Turok is definitely Slade, mainly because he is most well-known for his beef with Turok, and there are a few things I want to talk about with this beef between Turok and Slade. I've heard some people say that the feud between Slade and Turok feels unnecessary or somewhat unprovoked, but here's what I have to say about it. I don't think Slade is necessarily in the wrong for having massive distrust with Turok, but as I mentioned about how the story feels like there's so much with so little explained, the beef between Turok and Slade feels the same way. Basically, the whole gist between Slade and Turok's beef is that Slade's brother was either a member of Wolfpack also, or he was a soldier during one of Wolfpack's operations. I honestly don't really remember or if the game really explained it well. But something happened with Slade's brother, and apparently Turok is responsible for it in some way. And then to top it all off, Turok abandons Wolfpack either after or during that operation. And so now, in Slade's eyes, Turok is a coward and his brother's dead because of either his cowardice or something like that. Again, the game doesn't really elaborate much on this beef between Turok and Slade. I feel like more than likely the writer wanted this beef to be in here between these two characters to establish some character development between these two, so they can eventually grow a bond between each other. And again, while I do think the story overall, this whole feud isn't developed much, I do sort of understand where Slade is coming from. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of being some special ops guy. Imagine you're like a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL, and one day someone joins your squad who is not only an outsider, but also just previously served with your enemy. And all you know about them is that they went AWOL with their previous faction, and now they're here with you. I'm sure you would be extremely distrustful with them as well. Although maybe you could argue that it seems kind of weird that it's only Slade and no one else that has trust issues with Turok. But again, in my example, I think Slade has more personal involvement with Turok being there that could make him uneasy. But in our eyes, we're the ones playing Turok. We know that Turok isn't a bad dude and we understand his intentions because, well, we're the ones playing him. But on the other hand, Slade doesn't know that. He doesn't know Turok's intentions for why he did exactly what he did with Wolfpack. And I don't want to be too pretentious, nor do I think the game was intentionally trying to be this deep, but there's a quote that I heard that will forever stick with me for the rest of my life. And it was a quote I originally heard from a streamer named Josh Strife Hayes. It was from a video that was taken from a VOD of his, and I don't exactly remember what he was talking about, but the quote was, "We judge others based on their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions." And again, while I do think this idea was not intended to be in the game, but if this dynamic would have been expanded upon, I genuinely think this dynamic would have been an awesome design in the beef between Slade and Turok. But again, I don't think this was intentional, and I think a lot of this stuff was just just put here for the sake of it, but not really sure of what to do with it. And I feel like the whole game was made like this. I feel like this game and Evolution have the opposite issues. As I talked about before in my previous Turok video, Turok Evolution felt like it had something there, but it just didn't have the time and resources to expand upon those set pieces. Meanwhile with Turok 08, I feel like this game had plenty of time and money to be made, but the game was made first and the story was added on after the game was made. Now is that exactly how this game was designed? I don't actually know that, and I'm not sure if it actually did. A lot of people like to clown on this game for having a mediocre story at best, and I honestly think this game actually has a decent baseline for a story. They give you common enemy you are fighting for, but they don't give you reason why you are fighting this enemy until you crash land on a planet. Then literally the whole point of the game is just survival. There's a conflict of interests or values and morals, depending on how you want to look at it, between you and the main villain, but they really don't expand upon that dynamic between you and the villain. There is a conflict between you and one of your comrades over bad pasts and misunderstood intentions, but again, that dynamic is not developed. Instead of sorting out those issues between you and Slade by good and well-designed character development, Slade just slowly starts respecting you by just proving your worth and how much of a badass you are. And as I mentioned before, they throw all these characters at you but give you very little to even no time at all for some of them for these characters. You never learn why they're there, they never talk about their own personal conflicts with the mission and everything going on around them. They never talk about their personal feelings of like missing their family, missing home, you know, the usual stuff. I mean, hell, even Halo gives their Marines more character development than they did with these characters. Another thing they greatly skipped out on is the environmental storytelling. I don't think this is something I've ever talked about in a video, but I'm going to say it now. I am a sucker for environmental storytelling. Bethesda games do this amazingly. The Elder Scrolls games, the Fallout games, Baldur's Gate 3 had amazing environmental storytelling. Red Dead 2 has some of the best environmental storytelling I've ever seen in a game. And even if we want to compare games more similar to this, Halo is, well, what can you say about Halo? It's literally peak FPS games. And hell, even COD has some decent environmental storytelling depending on the Call of Duty. But in this game, there's just nothing. And I tried my best to look, but all there is just linear level layout with grass, trees, rocks, and human structures. And there's one point in the early game where you go through this base where you and Slade split off. And when you progress further through this area, you find this room that has all these computers, and Turok finds out that the planet they are on is being terraformed because the computers say there's been an increase in evolutionary activity. And sadly, they did nothing with this. You learn about this and then forget about it after like it never happened. Like, imagine if for story purposes they ran with this concept, and after learning about this event happening, you start to notice that the dinosaurs are getting bigger or they're getting wackier attributes to themselves. Imagine if like the Dilos became like Jurassic Park Dilos and began spitting venom toward you, or the raptors developed spikes on their back so you couldn't just run up to them and stab them. There's so many story and gameplay set pieces and mechanics they could have come up with for this concept. And I think they do this a few more times where they introduce a new set piece for one moment and it's gone after to never be seen again. And this isn't the only instance of this. You know that guy John Grimes? Yeah, he shows up twice during the whole game. He shows up once being seen entering the base when you're going through that big base area in the early game, and when he ambushes you around the middle point of the game, and after that he's never seen again. Again, John could have been an amazing asset for this game's story. He could have been the character that got into Turok's head and make him question his skills, and perhaps make him feel like that his skills just aren't up to par with the other members of Wolfpack. But they just use him off screen for a plot that doesn't really go anywhere, and he kills off Reese. He shows up again near the end of the game, but he ends up getting killed by the crumbling debris. But you know, I could go on and on about these little nitpicks I have of the story and the world itself, but I will go over some of the things I really like about the game. I really like the design of the world and the dinosaurs. While yes, the lore of the world itself is bare bones at best, the art design of the world is really cool though. And the overall design of the world really reminds me a lot of Skull Island with these tall mountains with sharp edges, the thick foliage, and all the big rocky areas you walk around. None of the weapons are super extraordinary, though they do have some cool designs to them. The SMG and the pulsar rifle don't really feel like they perform too much differently, besides the pulsar rifle feel like it has a little bit more accuracy. The RPG is always fun, blowing things up. I never used the pistol because I feel like it was an inferior version of just everything. The sniper I never used because its ammo just isn't very common, and the flinch that happens when you get shot can be pretty crazy, so I'd rather have volume of fire rather than just pure firepower. And the shotgun honestly kinda sucks. It doesn't have any oomph to it, and it takes quite a bit of shots to kill a raptor, and its range of effectiveness is just not even there. And the bow I just rarely use because stealth really isn't important in this game, and you can't really ever stealth at all to begin with, so really no point in using the bow. The flamethrower is only really useful against the bugs. The chain gun is pretty cool, but I feel like its main use is the sentry mode it has with it, and of course, what can I say about the knife? This thing one-shots any raptor or small dinosaur. Its only downside is that sometimes triggering the animation can be inconsistent at times. I'm sure there are other weapons I'm forgetting, but at least with the main ones I used, they were alright, but never anything super extraordinary. But they do look cool. Also, can I talk about the soundtrack real quick? Another Turok game has once again delivered us another set of bangers. I have yet to play a Turok game that doesn't have a good soundtrack. And while yes, the game itself isn't super amazing, you cannot tell me though that the soundtrack in this game is a certified bop. Whoever made the soundtrack for this game most definitely listened to the other Turok soundtracks and said, nah, I'd win, and made this. I will say though, I absolutely love the emphasis of dinosaurs in this game. Every Turok game did have dinosaurs in it, but it also felt like the dinosaurs were just another enemy in the game and never really felt like they had a big presence in the games or felt like they really had anything to do with the overall story of the game. Meanwhile with this Turok, they fully embrace the dinosaurs being the main spotlight of this game, and you can tell this by how many dinosaurs there are throughout the whole game, the amount of different dinosaurs in the game, and the T-Rex and the Giganotosaurus as the apex dinosaurs for this game. And honestly, the focus on the dinosaurs in this game is what really makes me love this game. This Turok completely embraces what is unique to this series, and that's the dinosaurs and wacky universe. Though the game doesn't really have a wacky story or a universe. In fact, this Turok is honestly the most grounded game story-wise out of all the other Turok games. But what they do is bring more emphasis to the dinosaurs, and I just eat that shit up. So as I said, this game in terms of its mechanics as a shooter, the story and everything else is nothing more than a mediocre at best, and maybe not super interesting for some of you at worst. This game feels so weird to me. It has this weird middle ground of things being nothing amazing, but I can't help but love the game still. In fact, I actually like this game more than Evolution, and both of these games hold a close place in my heart for nostalgia reasons. But the reason I like this game more is because of what I mentioned before. Evolution got crapped out because the studio was going downhill and the game was doomed at the start because it just honestly wasn't a very well functioning game. Meanwhile, this game is the opposite. The best way I can describe how I feel about this game is that this game was made by a AA studio with a AAA budget. They made an awesome baseline of a story, but yet left so many more things out of the game. The gameplay is fine as a shooter, yet doesn't do anything exemplary out of it. Like, you can tell that the design of this game takes inspiration from games like Halo, Gears of War, and Crysis. And the reason why I think this is because the armor on the Whiskey Company characters looks a bit like the armor that the Marines wear in Halo. And the reason I feel a bit of Gears of War is because of super big, muscly brawling dudes among you in Whiskey Company. And Crysis because of the armor design of Kane's men that look a bit like those nanosuits from Crysis. And while Turok has always had a tech bow that's basically a fancy looking compound bow, the one in Turok 08 looks very much like the bow from Crysis. The best way I can rate this game is that this is the best mediocre game I've ever played and I love it. This game deserves nothing more than a 6 out of 10, but deserves nothing less than a 6 out of 10. I freaking love this game. This game holds a massive place in my heart in terms of nostalgia, and it's really crazy to think that this was the last Turok game we've got. And I want you to brace yourselves real quick, okay? This game came out, not shitting you, 16 fucking years ago. That's fucking crazy when you think about it. And you know what? This game actually looks really good for a 16-year-old game. Oh, something I forgot to mention too, the bugs. And no, not those bugs. You can deal with those with a flamethrower. But when it comes to the bugs I encountered in this game, I encountered very few and none really too major, besides a couple times where I did have to restart the checkpoint because I just could not progress through the game. But the only bugs I vividly remember is a bug that happens with the characters' dialogues, where they will repeat their sentence multiple times.
Here, we can climb up these
That bridge
vines.
is the only way.
Here, we can climb up these vines.
And one where the human enemies do this weird head shake. The performance was perfectly fine, but granted the game is 16 years old. And when it comes to crashes, I crashed I think only no more than 2 or 3 times. And I think it's just because the PC version is just weird. And I'm sure the bugs I encountered are probably more tied to the PC version since, again, the PC version is kind of weird. But yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about this game. I'm gonna lie, the script took me way longer than I expected, and I went into way more detail than I anticipated. I'm honestly glad I ended up doing so because, again, since this is the last Turok game we got, I really wanted to do it justice. As I said, this game holds a very special place in my heart. Again, I know this game isn't looked back upon with rose-tinted glasses compared to other games, and in actuality, I feel like this game gets almost about as much criticism as Evolution does, when I don't really feel like the game completely deserves it. And don't get it twisted by thinking I'm trying to take a revisionist view on this game. Monkey, come on, monkey. Because again, I know that when compared to other FPS games of its time, it is completely overshadowed by other better games. But to act like this game is completely bad and doesn't deserve a chance is a little harsh in my opinion. Of course, I know that this game will not be for everyone. However, I do feel like most of, if not all of you watching right now are watching this because just like me, you have nostalgia over this game. And if you're on PC and haven't played this game in years and want to have a blast from the past and play a fun game that won't feel like your time is wasted, then I highly recommend you play this game. Again, I will have a link in the description to the website to download this game. And again, I want to stress this, follow the instructions listed by the website. Every single one. If you do, you will avoid any issues and headaches. And before I go, I just want to thank all of you for the subs I got over my previous Turok video. When I first released that video, I only had about 100 subscribers or less. We are now sitting at nearly 800 subscribers. Again, I know that for others reaching 800 subs means nothing, but for me it means that my hard work is paying off and shows that you guys enjoy my content so much that you are willing to keep up with the content I produce. And the last Turok video I made is currently sitting at nearly 120k views as I'm writing this. And seeing all the comments from you guys talking about your nostalgia and how much my video helped bring back those fun memories is an honor none of you will ever be able to understand. And of course, there were a lot of you asking me where Turok Rage Wars and Turok 08 was, and well, here it is. I hope you guys are happy now. I know I sure as hell am. You have no idea how relieving this whole video series has been. While I did enjoy making these videos, it's also a massive weight off my shoulders and now I can pursue working on other things now. So with that said, I appreciate all of you who watched till the end, I appreciate all of you who sub, and I appreciate all of you who just watched. Even if you don't sub and don't watch till the end, I still appreciate your time. So thank you all for watching and I shall see you when the next video drops.